Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Let me begin by thanking you for taking some of your valuable time on a Saturday morning to come here so that we can have a dialogue about our community and our schools. My name is Tony Phillips. I am a homeowner in unincorporated South Fulton. I have grown up in this community since I was 8 years old, so I've been here a long time. And I have 4 children, 3 elementary school students and 1 middle school student in Fulton County schools. I'm a graduate of Fulton County schools. The last 10 years I've worked as a parent in various capacities with the school system. I've been on the Superintendent's Parents Advisory Council the last 5 years and worked closely with Robert Wilson before his recent departure. I chaired the LSAC at my local elementary school in Palmetto. And I'm currently on the School Governance Council, and I work with the Creekside Cluster. The only reason I tell you all that is because schools, I believe, are important, and they matter. In fact, I personally believe that it is the single best opportunity for children in our community to be able to choose a life they want. Most of us aren't born with silver spoons in our mouths in our community. We have to work for what we do, and education is key to that. So why are we here? Well, as a parent and an involved parent, and let me stop at the beginning. I was remiss. I want to thank Phillip Randolph Elementary School, and I don't know, the principal is here today for allowing us to come in this morning. That was very gracious of them. Kim Hartwell is back there. She is the PTA president for Phillip Randolph, and she has been invaluable to us over the last several months. Why are we here? Earlier this year, some of you may be aware that if you kind of follow politics, that during the state legislative session, there was House Bill 638, which was introduced by the city of Atlanta. Some of you may know, I can't recall the representative's name who sponsored the bill. But that bill was to annex a much larger portion of unincorporated South Fulton. Pat Garner, the state representative. So let me pause right here. Annexations under state law are done in one of 3 ways. And I see Kenny is an attorney, so she can help me if I get off track. They're done in one of 3 ways. The first one is called 100% annexation. If I own property, it's all mine. I got 5 acres, and I border another city, and I decide that I want to put my 5 acres in that city. If I contact them and they say yes, that's all that needs to happen because it's my property. And so that's 100% annexation, right? The other method is the one that was attempted during the legislative session. It's called annexation by legislation. That's where someone introduces a bill to the state legislature and says, we want a referendum to annex whatever map they came up with. And that referendum, if it passes the state legislature, gives everybody in that area a chance to vote on whether or not they would like to be annexed. That's what was attempted during the most recent legislative session. Now, under that type of annexation, all you need to annex is 50% plus 1 on the day of the election. So there could be 100,000 unincorporated Fulton. If that vote were to come in, however many people voted on that day, 5,000, 2,000, whatever it is, 50 plus 1 would win the referendum. So that bill went before the legislature this past session. It didn't gain a lot of momentum. It never got out of the House of Representatives. Didn't have enough people to co-sign on it. It didn't get a lot of momentum. The state legislature, however, has now created a system where bills introduced have a 2-session lifespan. What that means is, just because it didn't pass this year, it will come back again in January 2016. So, when they attempted this legislative annexation, it was for a much larger portion of South Fulton than we are currently discussing. It included, I think, 6 different schools: Westlake, Seaborn Lee, Creekside, Camp Creek Middle School, Phillip Randolph, Sandtown Middle School, maybe even 1 or 2, Stonewall Elementary. And so, as a parent, when I saw a bill that says you're going to take 6 schools out of our community and put them in another school system, I immediately said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, a bunch of folks said, whoa, 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 because many of you were probably at the meeting that was held at Westlake High School, where about 600 parents showed up on less than 24 hours notice to let their voices be heard and say, we're not comfortable with this. Long story short, that effort stalled in the state legislature, right? So there is a third way that you can annex. I told you about the 100% method. We talked about annexation by legislation. The third one is what's called the 60% method. And that, under state law, says that if you draw a map, and then you go and attempt to get 60% of the registered voters to sign a petition, and, not or, and 60% of the landowners by acreage. If you can get both of those, 60% of the registered voters, 60% of the landowners to all sign a petition, then by law, that area can be annexed. Okay? Over the last, I would say 18 months or so, there have been a series of meetings throughout our community. Most of them sponsored or hosted by the city of Atlanta, where they were coming into our community and talking about annexation. In many of those meetings, they actually passed out petitions and asked people to sign. Now, we have been canvassing, that's Kathy Foster Brown back there, and y'all ought to hear from her before the meeting's over, because she's been heading up our effort to canvass, go knock on people's doors. And what we found when we've been knocking on people's doors for the last month and a half is that a lot of people who signed didn't really understand what they were signing. Over and over again, people said, wait a minute, what do you mean you're taking schools? Well, the reason the schools are involved is that under current state law, if you, the city of Atlanta's city limits expand currently, the Atlanta public school system boundaries go with the city boundaries. So where the city goes, APS goes. So if they annex this community, and wherever the city becomes part of the city of Atlanta, under current state law, this school would immediately become part of the district of the Atlanta public school system. Now, most of you who have been here for any amount of time know that we have 2 separate school systems in Fulton County. We have the Fulton County school system, which essentially covers all of Fulton County outside the city of Atlanta, about 13 cities. And then you have the Atlanta Independent Public School System. They don't work together. They're 2 separate and distinct systems. Atlanta Public Schools has their own elected school board. Fulton County Schools has their own elected school board. Right? And so education choices and decisions are made by the school board and APS, independent of the choices and the policies done by Fulton County Schools. So if they annex this area, immediately under current state law, Phillip Randolph, Sandtown Park and Recreation Center, and Sandtown Middle School would be within the city limits of Atlanta. Immediately, under current state law. All right, so we talked about the legislative session. We talked about the way that annexation works. Now, so you know, we reached out numerous times to both the Fulton County School Board and the Atlanta Public School System, And we had some dialogue with representatives from both boards. But despite our invitation for them to be here, unless someone's come in that I'm not aware of, I don't know that we have anybody here this morning from either school system. Speak now, or forever hold your peace. I didn't think so. Now, we've had significant dialogue with Linda Bryant, who is our school board representative. What you'll hear in just a few minutes is that there have been several lawsuits filed over this issue. And so typically, once that happens, the response you normally get was, well, I can't say anything because the lawsuit's pending. So that's what we're kind of getting at. That doesn't mean we've not had any dialogue, but I think that lessens the possibility that someone's going to come and speak publicly while there's a lawsuit pending. And so we've invited both of them to come, and they've not chosen to be here with us this morning, largely because of the pending lawsuits. So I wanted to share with you some information about impact of schools. And so what we've done is, I'm going to go through here in just a moment, let me go through and pull it up. The PowerPoint presentation that the Fulton County school system put together, independent of the community. This isn't our presentation. This is what the Fulton County school system put together. And I think it was at their April 25th, or the April 25th meeting? Somewhere around there, school board meeting. Right. And they showed this to the community, but not everyone got a chance to see it. So I'd like for you to see what Fulton County Schools says they believe would happen if this annexation goes through as it is currently proposed. So let's kind of look at what the school board says, the Fulton County School Board says would happen. They believe these schools are annexed. All right, so the City of Atlanta submitted an annexation petition to Fulton County Board of Commissioners on April 8th. As I told you, it requires 60% of the landowners, 60% of the registered voters. They identified 3 community areas. It's actually 3 separate annexations: South Oaks, Loch Lomond, and Sandtown. Now, you have to look at the maps because what a lot of us think of when we say Sandtown is a much larger area than what is actually included in the Sandtown annexation. Okay? They indicated no plans to change zoning and land use. Why is that important? Under current state law, the city has to notify the county that they want annexed. The county has only one legal reason that they can object to an annexation, and that is if the annexation proposes to change the land use or the zoning. So if it was a residential community and you were proposing to change it to something else, the county could object. That did not apply in this instance. They weren't trying to change any of the zoning of the land use. Signatures were not included with the formal petition, and Fulton County Schools was not formally notified of the petition. So when they first sent the letters over to Fulton County, they were supposed to send, remember we talked about 60% of people signing? Actually send the petition, the signatures. Initially they weren't included. Since then, we've gotten copies of those petitions with the signatures on them. But the last point is really important. If there is any care or concern about our children's education, I'm a little curious as to how you could propose these types of annexations, knowing that schools are involved and there's been no dialogue. You didn't talk to the school system. You didn't think it was worthy to have a conversation with the school system. And back up, remember, the first annexation attempt was back in January. You were trying to get 6 schools then. And to date, the Fulton County School Board says, we've heard from nobody with the City of Atlanta. They've had little if any dialogue with the Atlanta Public School System. So we're impacting schools and nobody is talking to anybody when you look at the organizations involved: APS, Fulton County Schools, City of Atlanta. Okay? Next slide, please. So, those are the three communities we talked about, all right? South Oaks community, there are 2 students in South Oaks. They go to Phillip Randolph or Sandtown. How many? Oh, I'm sorry, those 2 students are at Tri-City? Oh, okay. All right, so there are 48 students in Loch Lomond that are in Fulton County schools, and 150 students in Sandtown that are in Fulton County schools, in the area that they're proposing to annex. Those are the number of students that live in those areas, right? You look at those 3 annexations, that adds up to 200 students, right? That would be in the newly annexed area if this were to go through. 200 students. All right, next slide. Those are maps of the annexation areas. You can't really see them very well, but we've got other copies if you can look at more closely. Keep going on. Next slide. Okay, so Fulton County School says Randolph Elementary School has 639 projected students. They have a capacity of 650 students, 57 classrooms, 97,000 square feet, 13 acres, and this school's estimated cost that we're sitting in right now is roughly $18 million. Right? Next slide. Sandtown Middle School, 1,001 projected students. State capacity is about 1,175, 80 classrooms. The MOID program is a program specifically for special needs students. There's not another one anywhere in South Fulton. Those of you who are parents at Sandtown probably know they made special accommodations in that school for this program, right? So if Sandtown goes away, there's not another school in South Fulton with this program for special needs children. 179,000 square feet, 50 acres of land, and an estimated cost of $36 million. So impact. So here's what the school board says would happen. Here's what would be the impact if this happened. All right? 1,850 students displaced without a school location or zone. 575 elementary school students and 950 middle school students. Where'd that number come from? Now remember, there's a capacity of 1,100 students at Sandtown. And I think we said about nearly 700 at Phillip. All right, so that's roughly 1,800. Of that number, only 200 of those students would actually live in the new city limits of Atlanta. So the question becomes, what happens to all those other students who go to these schools but would not be in the city limits of Atlanta if this school got annexed, right? And that's why the school board is telling you these students would be displaced, right? Because they live in Fulton County, but the school they were attending last school year is now in the city of Atlanta, which means Fulton County students can't go to an APS school and vice versa. So, what would happen? The school board said there would be massive rezoning, right? Meaning, existing facilities can't accommodate these students, extreme domino type movements, anticipated the program we just talked about, moderate to severely disabled students with significant physical and emotional needs gets displaced. And Sandtown Middle School zone is the highest 5-year projected growth in all of Fulton County. Long story short, roughly 1,800 kids have to go somewhere else. That's an important point, because that's the point that tells you that this is not just about Phillip Randolph and Sandtown Middle School, as important as those are. Because when you push 1,800 students out of those schools, they have to go somewhere. If any of you are parents in Stonewall Elementary School, they are over capacity right now. They can't take another student over there. So what happens? You push nearly 2,000 students out of school, the school board is forced to then move those students to other places. So some of them are close to Stonewall, well, Stonewall is overcrowded, so what do? Well, you move some students in Stonewall, and then others have to leave. Then they got to go to the next school. So maybe they go to Seaborn Lee. Well, Seaborn Lee is now overcrowded, so what do? You move some in, you move some out. It's a domino effect. And so what happens is, and they stated this at the meeting where they showed us this, the effect of this would literally be that you would overcrowd every remaining elementary school and middle school in South Fulton. They all get impacted by this, because that wave of displaced students just keep going to the next school and the next school, so you start seeing more trailers in the parking lot. I don't know parents who like trailers, I certainly don't. What happens is the teacher to student ratio increases. Every teacher I've ever talked to says that that's not a good thing. And if you've ever been in a classroom with third graders like the ones I got, 15 is about as many as you need. Most of our classes got 20 or 25. So when you make that 28, 29, 30 students in a class, educational outcomes go down. You have to see the larger picture. This isn't just about one annexation. And bear in mind that when this initially started back in January, it wasn't just 2 schools. It was 6 schools. All right, let's go to the next slide. That's it? Oh, that's the last slide. That's the last slide. So that's what the school board says is going to happen. Bottom line is nearly 2,000 students get pushed all over South Fulton. And then we as parents have to figure out what happens. All right? So that's what the school system says happens when this goes on. Impact to Sandtown Park and Recreation Center. Let's talk about that. Because it's not just the schools. Those of you who live in this community know there's a recreation center in between the 2 schools. And it is owned and operated by Fulton County government currently. So what would happen? I can talk a little bit about this because I work with the county when I'm at work. And so I know exactly what happens when a park is annexed. Recently, there was an annexation in Chattahoochee Hills. It was largely one property owner who had several thousand acres, but there were a few other areas around it. They got annexed into the city of Chattahoochee Hills earlier this year. That area, that annexation, included the Cedar Grove Community Center, which is a community building that Parks and Rec has operated for many years. So the question immediately became, well, now that it's in the city of Chattahoochee Hills, what happens? So of course we went to the county attorney and said, what's the law? What can we do? The county attorney came back and said, state law currently says that when it comes to operating a park, that the county cannot operate a park in any city that has more than 5,000 residents. Okay? Chattahoochee Hills, in this instance, has less than 5,000 residents. And so what they've done is they actually have asked the county to continue to operate that building, which they can legally do if they have less than 5,000 residents. Well, in this instance, as you know, the city of Atlanta has far more than 5,000 residents, which would mean that if the recreation center and park were annexed, that the county could not continue to operate. That would be something that the city would have to decide in terms of what they would do with the park. What I can tell you, because I'm integrating all parks and recreation, is that there is a very vibrant and active Sandtown Youth Athletic Association that has been in this park for many, many years. We make the choice to utilize athletic associations like Sandtown and Welcome All and Go National, because what it does is it brings parents and families into the park and allows them to have a role in operating the programs at the park. We believe that that's a good model because it ties the community to the park. People feel ownership of the park, and their association is largely doing the programming. To my knowledge, that's not how things are done in the city of Atlanta. So what would happen with the Sandtown Youth Athletic Association is an open question, right? The likelihood is that something different may happen at some point. Recreation Center programming, we currently operate an after-school program at Sandtown. We operate a summer camp that's going on as we speak. There's youth basketball. There are a range of other activities that happen at the Sandtown Recreation Center currently. All of that would stop. What else may happen would be up to the city of Atlanta if they annex that area. There would likely be some negotiation between the city and park when the cities up north annexed. There was some financial transaction. The cities had to pay for the parks, and so I'm sure there will be a similar discussion in this instance. And just so you know, Sandtown Park has a lot of undeveloped acreage. It's not just the athletic field that you see. We own additional property, the county does, adjacent to the park, that could be for potential future expansion. So all of that would be a part of that negotiation. Let me pause right here. Someone just gave me a note that says that we do have an Atlanta School Board representative for the area with us. E.J. Collins is here with us today. Where are you? Oh, I'm sorry, Mitch. How you doing? Would you like to come up and maybe give us a few thoughts on the annexation? Thank you so much, Ms. E.J. Collins.
Good morning. My name is E.J. Collins, and I represent District 6 on the Atlanta Board of Education, which is the Darrell Cluster community and this part of this area that will be impacted by annexation. First, I want to thank Aaron for reaching out to us in regards to, especially the board members, in regards to this issue. We've been studying it. I know it's definitely for me. I've been following it very closely. Unfortunately, I have not been moved to the invitations of the meetings that took prior to this itself for this meeting. I live in a Princeton Lakes community, originally from Atlanta, grew up in the East Atlanta area, graduated from Druid High School, went to Fulton undergrad, taught at ES, and my master's at Georgia State, and I actually work at Georgia State now as a board in federal compliance. And so Atlanta is my heart, and Atlanta is dear to me. This issue is dear to us, and I want you guys to know that because we understand what will the impact will be. We didn't push the green button on this. However, we are standing by and we'll do whatever is in the best interest of our children, whatever happens. So just give you an update of what we are. And from my understanding, with the annexation and the communities that are petitioning to the annexation, the city of Atlanta has filed, I'm sure you guys are aware, the city of Atlanta has filed suit against APS as a defending party in regards to changing the state legislation to allow communities that are annexed into the municipalities or cities to be able to choose the schools that they decide to go to. It is an issue of first impression. It has the last time the state and any county has addressed this issue. The latest case we found was 1898. And there is one other case in 1963 maybe, and I may be off a little bit by the years, that addressed the issue. And what happened, there was a resolution between the parties in regard to moving. So we want you guys to understand that this is uncharted territory for all of us. And the impact is great. What I can say is that our position as APS is whatever comes from that decision, we are absolutely open to working collaboratively to make sure we do not disrupt the education of our children, because that is our top priority. It has been, I think, to be honest with you, and be completely transparent, because that's the board member I am. It has been completely disheartening to hear the comments and the environment and the comments that are made about pretty much the Darrell Cluster and the children that are being educated in Darrell Cluster. And I completely understand where parents' concerns are. I tell everyone, your job as parents is to decide what best doing and teaching to your children. It is my job as a school board rep and our school leaders and our teachers and staff to make sure those schools are great of the highest quality education where they become schools of choice for you. And so we're going to continue that work, and we're going to continue to move forward in improving that area. And I say this area because that is my own school. Deerwood, Orange, and Carroll are the schools that my children will go to. Just to give you an update on some of the things that we are doing at APS, we are adopting a lot of the practices and a lot of the things that Fulton County has spearheaded. As you guys know, we have submitted our application to move the charter system model. Darrell Cluster will be the first cluster. I only have, to give you a historical perspective, I only had one school, and I represent the entire South Atlanta area. So my district ranges from South Atlanta High School all the way west to Southwest to this area. And we only had one IB school that was Deerwood Academy, elementary school, where parents felt were very challenging. Now headed by Keisha Perry, who was one of the assistant principal leaders at Deerwood High School. And so this year will be the first year that the entire federal cluster, we solidified our cluster plans. Because what we saw was that our parents would send our children to great elementary schools, Big Continental College, customers going IB. So all our elementary schools will be IB, virtual will go IB, and that will transition to Farrell High School. They'll also be IB. This will be also the first year we'll be launching an early college component at Farrell, where our children will be going to Atlanta Area Tech, where they'll actually, where they'll actually finish their high school curriculum 9th and 10th grade and actually transition to Atlanta Area Tech, where they will graduate with that degree. I just want to give you guys, feed you guys some information of the things that are happening, the good things that are happening, and then we'll be here to address any questions that you guys may have about this issue. And I can't say much about the next steps because there's so much in the air, but what I can say is that we are listening. We are listening to the community feedback. We are listening to the community's concern, and I can just give you my personal stance and how I truly feel. I won't support disrupting the 1,800 to 2,000 children that will be impacted. So just know, in my position, in my role, I'll be working collectively with Linda Bryant and our Fulton County School Board, and the elected officials in that capacity, and Dr. Maria Stark and Dr. Rosa. They've already met to talk about it prematurely, but because there is so much up in the air, we have not landed the plane. But know that we are listening, and know that we are taking your concerns and your feedback as we move forward in the process. Yes, ma'am.
Did anybody from Fulton County come to APS and talk to you?
No. No. The only individual that we had conversations with, and I'll give her the credit in regard to educating us on this topic early, was the Dr. Jones. I know her, I know her before we were elected, and Marvin Arrington, who I also have known. Linda Bryant, I communicated. Linda actually, she came to one of our retreats, and we talked about it briefly, but because the issues are still, there's question marks around so many things, we didn't remain.
And when I know that you said, what I hear from you, you're talking about APS, and I applaud you for that. But my concern is the Fulton County School in the kids in South Fulton area. And I'm quite sure that anybody who wants to move into Atlanta and go to school, that's what they will, put away. And I'm not here to address, I want to know what you're going to do about this situation for Fulton County schools. You can tell me good things going to happen in the Atlanta school system. I see the news, they don't look too good to me.
I won't come in and make promises that I can't keep. But what I can tell you, and like I just stated, I am not for supporting disrupting the education of 1,800 to 2,000 students that will be impacted. So whatever that conversation will be to collectively make sure that that's not a disruption to those students, I will support it. The reason we have not pushed on it or opposed the annexation or say, well, the law is the law, is because we realize, and we are firmly, this board firmly stands by doing what's best for our children. So and I get what you're saying in regards to selling APS. I'm not selling APS. What I am doing is focusing on what's strong about our district versus what's wrong, and what the media will portray out to be what's wrong about our system. But do know that you have a supporter in APS that supports doing it, having a collective effort versus no conversation at all.
Let me do this. We'll take a couple of questions, but we have some more stuff to cover. We got some index cards, and what we'd really like for you to do is write your questions down. Now, Ms. Collins may not have much more time. I don't know how much time.
I will be around. I may have a hard stop this week.
It's just a quick question related, just specifically to her. If under the current annexation, this area do you become the district representative, or you already have designs on, or the school board has already said, hey, If this comes in, we'll split this up. You'll take it in District 7, you'll have it in District 6, or would they all fall under you as our district representative should we become a part of the city of Atlanta?
Yes, he stated if the annexation does in fact go through, and this area becomes part of the city of Atlanta, well, I would be the school board rep. As of right now, yes.
Okay.
There has not been, and that's what, and that's what I can assure you guys, we have not been concrete on anything, but I will be the school board rep, and Keisha Lance Bottom will be the city council rep. But I will be the school, all I can just say collectively, and I understand you guys' frustration about it, but the law is the law. But I will be the school board rep for the area. And
Thank you.
yes, I saw Ms. Anderson.
I just want to clarify because you keep saying the law is the law. So you're saying since yourself and Keisha Lance Bottom already have a location to be represented and we will be now annexed in, it seems like it'd be a new location. It's expounding, so why wouldn't we have our own reps?
Well, you may move into that conversation, but the question was, if it goes through now,
Sure.
who will be the rep? Right now, what I can answer definitely concretely is I will be the rep. Now, conversations about redistricting and rezoning and balancing, that may come down the line, but I will just answer for you for what happened now. There's been no conversation about rezoning, creating new positions, restructuring or anything, because there has been, all of this is pending what the lawsuit.
Right, but annexing in would be, you would be rezoning because you're annexing in something that wasn't in, so you are.
The likelihood is that
Yeah, the
it's something
likelihood is that it would
that
happen over years. There's another process in regards to moving to rezoning as well. It's not something that would just be done by paper. You have to have a public hearing, you have to file, the same thing with annexation. What I'm telling you now is, if at the time, absolutely, and I will be open to that as well.
We're going to take two more and then we got to get to the rest of the stuff we need to talk about.
Talk about all the things that you're planning on doing in APS. Talk about the school system, what they currently are, and bringing them up to date and all that stuff. If you have not done that, why are you coming in our house and bothering us, trying to get up into something that you haven't been mixed over there yet?
Okay, so first, like I said, we're not planning, it's an action. I've been elected since January 2014, it's a year and a half. And I will agree with you, when before I got on board, part of the reason I decided to run was that the school wasn't a quality. And so that's the second thing, it's not a plan, it's an action that we're moving towards. The second part of your question is that while we're coming over into your house, this is not our doing and we didn't initiate this, which is why I am saying to you in this audience that we want to work with you to resolve this, so the feeling of someone stepping in your house on your territory is not there. We as a school district and APS, we were brought into this process. We did not push the button, nor lead the effort in gaining more schools and gaining more students. That wasn't our agenda. But what I'm telling you our agenda is to work collectively with the communities here in South Fulton to make sure we don't disrupt the education of the 18 to 2,000 children that will be impacted. I understand this is difficult, and I understand that there's a lot of frustration around this, and there's frustration on both sides, but know that I'm here to collectively work for you.
Let me interject. We're going to take one more question on this issue. There's other important information we have not heard yet. And so I want you to write your questions down. I want you to ask every question you have. But there's other important information we need to get to. So we'll take one last question, and Ms. Thomas says she'll stand around.
The only question, a lot of people don't have all the information on what's kind of going on and happening. And if they're not, we're talking about 2,000 students too, but the students that are impacted by the annexation really only represent, 120 students? So technically, how would these buildings remain open when 90% of the population, if the annexation happened today, 95% of the populations of Randolph and Sandtown would not be a part of the annexation. So these buildings would then be owned by APS. How would APS fill the populations to keep these buildings open when there are 4 other elementary schools that have 400 at 2 and 600 at the other 2 that are within the federal cluster?
I absolutely agree with you, which is why I stated this is an issue of first impression. It's the first time we're ever seeing this. So there are some things, and like I said, I'm not going to make any promises I can keep. What I can talk to you about, what I can talk to you, what I can talk to you about are some of the things that have happened historically. I mean, we're even looking at what other counties have done, what other states have done when this issue has presented itself, where the area that will be impacted will actually cause detriment to the area that will be unimpacted. And so you're talking, well, let me answer your question for the sake of time. So there has been some cases and issues of coming to, having an agreement with the neighboring school district. So that would require the board and the superintendents to have conversations and possibly come to a collective agreement with Fulton County schools. There was also some issues, there has been some research that I've seen in regards to selling the buildings to Fulton County to rezone it, having some kind of long-term lease agreement. There's some things that we've seen. But like I stated, I can't give you anything concretely until we see what happens from the legal decision. But those are things that, if we were firm on the law is the law, and if it's annexed, we get the buildings, we get the students, these conversations wouldn't be happening, and this level of research wouldn't be taking place.
I just want to make it clear that I'm using to do on the school board, because I've asked this question before to Lance Collins and other people at their West City Council. None of them would say out of their mouth that these buildings would close if the annexation happened.
Well, no one can say that.
But how would you fill the population of these schools when you cannot fill the population for others?
What I'm telling you is,
Like to move on.
no. Let me close out, because I mean, they want answers. I want to give it to you. What you're saying is, this is what would happen, right? If we did absolutely nothing, if I was not here, we did absolutely nothing. What you're saying would absolutely happen. What I'm saying, the reason why you may not be getting any answers is because everyone is open to it, but we don't know concretely what that looks like because it's never been done before. So I know if it gets to that point, I would want your feedback on that as we move in that direction. But what you're saying is, what will happen if nothing is done? What I'm telling you is that we all are at the table and conversation on what we need to do to not, and like I said, I'll say it for a third time, I am not here, we're not here to disrupt the eight. But what I'm saying is, you can rest assured from me, if you can say, well, Ms. Collins came and she said, I am not going to support disrupting the education of 18 to 2,000 students. And I think everyone from everyone who I spoke to today, know that that's my position. So whatever we need to do to move towards that point, then that's what we'll do. And the 200 students that will be impacted by annexation, APS will take them in with open arms and provide the quality education they deserve as any other student. So I will be here. I will remain, and I'll be here again. Absolutely. And I have my heart.
Again, we're not trying to discount your questions, so please write them down, and we will get to them in just a moment when we get to that portion of the agenda. So that's part of the reason we want to be here, so you can ask questions. But there's other important information that we need to get to. What I can say I agree with Ms. Collins wholeheartedly on is that education should be a parent choice. And the reason there aren't a lot of answers is because nobody thought it was important to have these discussions before the answers. See, my view as a parent, all the answers that she's saying we don't have should have been taking place a year ago. You should have been doing that then. Then we would be having this. That's the problem. So let's move on. There's some important information that you need to know as well. All right, impact to our community. A lot of folks who may not have children in either of these schools go, well, why should I care? Well, if you look just beyond the surface, it's pretty easy to see why you should care. When you have a moment when you get home, get on Google and put in effect of schools on housing prices. Just put that in Google and see what comes up. What I can tell you is any real estate professional, any economic development professional will tell you one of the key indicators of economic development and home values in any community is the quality of your schools. Period. If you have challenged schools, it affects your home prices, it affects businesses wanting to move to your community. Talk to economic development folks. When companies look at to relocate, they use what they call site selection specialists. They hire companies to go scout sites to see, do I want to move my headquarters there? You know one of the first things a site selection person looks at? Schools. People don't move their businesses in the community where schools aren't doing well. That's the reason why this impacts not just these schools, not just these students, not just these parents, but all of our community. It all connects. That's why it's important. Annexation update. Let's talk about that for a minute. Fulton County received the notice, right? Lawsuits filed. And I want Emmanuel Tillman to come up and kind of take you through the timeline of what's happened. What's key is that a lawsuit has been filed by the city of Atlanta against the Atlanta public school system. And Ms. Collins kind of touched on that briefly. There was a law, I think the date was actually around 1957, all right, that separated the Atlanta public school system and the city of Atlanta, right? But it tied them together in terms of boundaries. It was renewed, I think, again in the late 80s. And the lawsuit that's been filed by the city of Atlanta seeks to set that law aside. In essence, it seeks to say, when we expand our city limits, APS should not automatically get to come with us. The county attorney who's looked at this lawsuit says it is based on what's called a procedural defect. Basically, that's lawyer talk for they didn't do it the right way. So they're not saying the law is unconstitutional. They're just saying back in 19 whatever, when they renewed it, they didn't dot an I and cross a T. And so they're filing this lawsuit based on a procedural defect. What's important about this lawsuit is that in every meeting I've been in, when we all went to the City of Atlanta Council meeting a couple weeks ago, and in every other meeting where I've heard people who propose that this is a good thing, what they say to me as a parent is, well, don't worry, we found a lawsuit. That's going to take care of this problem. But you don't have to have a law degree to understand, one, nobody can predict how the court will rule. All right? That's the first problem. You don't know how the court's going to rule, whether they're going to rule in favor of the city or somebody else. Two, you don't know when the court will rule. Now, there's been some hearings scheduled. There's a couple more coming. That's the second thing. But here's the other interesting thing. I have a copy of the lawsuit. When you read it in a lawsuit, the person petitioning the court will tell the court, here's the remedy that we would like when you overturn this law. Because if you disconnect APS in Atlanta, and then you annex this area, someone has to decide what happens to the schools. Well, in this lawsuit, the remedy that the city of Atlanta has told the court they would like is when we annex, APS doesn't get to come with us, and City of Atlanta Council will decide where the schools go. Which means people that we didn't vote for, we didn't elect, have no accountability to us, are going to decide what happens to those 1,800 kids. Now, in this instance, I go to Keisha and bottom public and say, listen, if they give us the authority to decide, we're going to leave Sandtown and Phillip and Fulton County schools, y'all can all take a deep breath, it'll be okay. But what happens when they come from Westlake? Or Stonewall Tail? Because see, once the court, if the court were to give them that authority, it's not just for these two schools, it's for every school they annex. And when it comes to Westlake, they may go, well, now hold on now. We're not going to put that one in APS. Stonewall Taylor's got really good test scores. We think we'll take that one for APS. So they would literally have the authority, if the court ruled with them, to pick and choose. Because the fact that they tried to annex a much larger area back in January should be a hint that this is not the end. This is the beginning. So what happens here, and the reason why this is so important is it sets a precedent, which is why our community has to speak loudly and forcefully to say, no, you cannot do this like this. At the end of the day, everybody has a lot of passion around this issue. And when we went before, the community went to the Board of Commissioners meeting with the City of Atlanta Council, you know what we heard? Y'all are just a bunch of frustrated city head folks, and y'all just trying to get a city, and you're mad because it didn't go through, and you fall around behind the Don Beckett Jones and Roger Bruce, and you're just being misled. That's insulting. I have 4 children. I don't rely on any competition to look out for my children. I can read. I'm reasonably intelligent like all of you in this room. And I don't need anybody to lead me. I look for information on my own. I can only speak for myself. I don't have any issue with the city of Atlanta. This is not me hating on the city of Atlanta or APS. I've been in this area since I was 8 years old. I was telling somebody recently, I was traveling, I checked in the hotel. The hotel clerk said, hey, where are you from? What do you think I said? Atlanta. I'm not ashamed of Atlanta. I am Atlanta. Just leave my children alone. And if somebody really wants to annex and do it legally, that's their choice. When it happened 7, 8 years ago in Guilford Forest, well, whether it was legal or not is another issue. But when it happened then, it was pretty much the people in that subdivision, right? The rest of us minded our business. There were no schools involved. It didn't impact the rest of us. So we basically said that's their choice. If they want to do that, that's fine.
They restricted to those subdivisions.
Gave a picnic for the Guilford Forest. Okay, you know you got a lot of professional people, doctors, lawyers, and all this stuff. Okay, what happened? Bad is big. I don't think they ain't real. The people signed in. You don't sign your name where you do not understand. That's how they told me sign in for this picnic. We want an egg count. So they signed their name Monday morning. They had verbiage on their lawn. They flew in Atlanta. Where we do it in Atlanta, Georgia.
No,
They
listen,
signed their name.
we'll talk about that. I want the manual now. Where's the manual?
That's right here.
Oh, to talk about the lawsuits. And then I want to talk about the actual petitions. Because there's a real question as to whether or not these petitions even meet what state law says they're supposed to have. We'll talk about that. Amen?
Mr. Phillips has talked a lot about some of the basics of the lawsuit, but let me just kind of lead in with the real basic thought. We got here not because of APS, because of your neighbors. Your neighbors signed stuff. I've listened to a lot of things. I've been to a number of meetings where it always comes up this thing about, should there be annexation into Atlanta? Should there be a city of South Fulton? Can we stay like we are? And generally what you hear from politicians is, you can't stay like you are. Because that's not convenient for politicians. Who elects politicians? We do. Who protects your house? I hope you do at some level. And I'm sorry, I'm going to steal a little bit from Under Armour, but if you want to stay independent, if you want to stay unincorporated, there's work that goes with that too. You must protect your house. If you understand what I'm saying, even if you want to stay exactly the same way you are, you need to talk to your neighbors. You need to not sign stuff that makes transitions. You must protect your house, whatever that means for you. Now, specific to these lawsuits, there's 2 lawsuits. I'm going to take the one that's less obvious first. This whole annexation, city growth thing has been going on for years. At least back to 2006 when they tried to grab 6 schools in a much bigger footprint. In order for Atlanta to do that, they keep trying to step into unincorporated South Fulton. They filed 2 lawsuits on March 18th. One of them was about the schools, one of them was about some property right across the street from Charlie Brown Airport, near where the old SunTrust is. They got their hands on some property that's literally, the city's here, the county's here. They got their hands on some property and they said, you know what? It's in the county, but it's right next to the city. We'll just annex it ourselves. Which, if you are a homeowner, you're allowed to do. As a municipality, it's not clear that you're allowed to do that. That's where that lawsuit came from. Because essentially, if you think about it, if that works for them, they can keep acquiring property in unincorporated Fulton County and saying, we just like to annex it into us until they got whatever they want. You need to tell people that's not right. You must protect your house. They're making up their own rules. And they're trying to get away with it because he has to go through lawyers and things like that. On the school side, you've already heard a lot about that, but just to make it clear, the lawsuit on March 18th came from the fact that they tried in the legislature to do it, and it did not work. You must protect your house. It's not enough to talk to Roger Bruce. It's not enough to talk to LaDon Blackett-Jones. All these politicians that really don't care a whole lot about South Fulton and get the vote on it, they need to hear from you. They need to get emails saying, we're watching, we're listening, we don't like what's going on. This whole idea of if they get what they want, their relief is to say, okay, the city of Atlanta or the Georgia legislature will tell you where your kids go to school. Not people you elect, not elected officials that you elect. The city of Atlanta will say, yeah, I think your kids can go to this school, but your kids can't. And you don't elect them. Don't let them get away with that. We need to communicate. We need to express our displeasure. We need to do it on a regular basis so they know not only do you not get away with this, but if you find some shenanigan way to get away with it, I will protect my house whether you say it's in unincorporated South Fulton. I will protect my house if you say it's in Atlanta. I will protect my house on a plane. I will protect my house on a train. I do not like being there for you. I do not like to stay there. I will protect my house. That's all of our jobs. And that comes down to some more stuff that we're talking about relative to getting names off petitions, not signing stuff we don't understand, and communicating with our neighbors. I appreciate that y'all are here today, but there's a lot of people that aren't. And when you start talking about some of the shenanigans that happen, I'll give it to you in real live data. We just had a special election for House District 55, which covers some of this area all the way up in the Midtown. 39,000 registered voters, 2,900 voted. The top two vote getters combined had less than 2,000 votes. They're going to have a runoff. If you had 2,000 votes, you'd be the House representative from District 55, and there would be no runoff. Vote. Talk to people about voting. One last thing. If you have neighbors that have not voted lately, part of the shenanigans that are going to go on, they're going to start trying to remove people from the voter rolls. It's as simple as, if they haven't voted in a while, I'm not asking them to go out and vote today. What I am asking you to check with all your neighbors on, make sure they register to vote ASAP. Because they will try to take their names off the voter rolls just so their 40% of signatures looks bigger. You can register to vote online. You don't even have to leave your house. If you got a driver's license and an internet connection, you can register to vote. You can just put up Google Georgia online voter registration. You'll get to that link, you click into it, register to vote. That helps us. Protect your house.
In the interest of time, I'm going to try to move forward because we don't want to keep everyone too long. I will tell you that voter registration piece is important. I know because I've seen the letters that the city contacted the Fulton Board of Elections and sent them a long list of registered voters and said, y'all need to purge this and get some of these folks off registration rolls. And it's what Emmanuel said, the more people they can remove from the voter registration rolls, the fewer signatures they have to get to 60%. Anytime somebody tries to keep people from voting, I get suspicious. I don't know about you, but that whole thing just don't sit right with me when you're trying to get people off the voter registration roll. You have an obligation as a voter. You need to make sure your registration is current, but that's just some information that you can use. The petition validation process, this is key. The state law says that once the petitions are turned in, that the city of Atlanta has to validate those petitions. What that means is they have to look at the number of registered voters in each of the annexation areas. They have to then determine what is 60% of that number. Then they have to make sure that the signatures match that number. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you got to look at the registered voters, see how many the total is, then determine how many signatures you have and see whether or not that equals 60%. You must also do the same thing in the city with the property owners by acreage, all right? And make sure that you have 60. If you do not have 60% of the registered voters and 60% of the landowners, you cannot annex. It's the minimum required by state law. Today, as we sit here on June 27th, now they sent the letters to the county back on April 8th, and they've had the petitions, they had to have the petitions before they sent the letter to the county. Today is June 27th. As we speak today, the city of Atlanta, as of yesterday, the city clerk's response to one of our citizens was, we hadn't had a chance to validate yet. We don't have all the information we need. We hadn't validated whether or not they're 60% or not. So let me share this with you. After the April 8th letters came to the county, many of us got really concerned. We did an open records request. By law, they had to give us the petitions once they had it. And shortly thereafter, there was a community meeting with Linda Bryant. And several of us parents showed up, and we were, as you might imagine, very concerned. And so after the meeting, several of us talked to Linda Bryant and one of the staff members who is a demographer. And we said, listen, we've got the signatures. Will you guys take a look at them and have your staff analyze these petitions and tell us whether or not they actually have 60% on them? I want you to keep in mind, we didn't do this initially. We gave it to the school board. Now, the school board, just like Fulton County government or Atlanta city government, is a government entity. They receive tax revenue. In fact, they get about half of their property tax. Goes to schools. So they have access to the tax assessors database of landowners, and they have access to the registered list of voters. They work with Fulton County Board of Elections. And so, at our request, they took the petitions, looked at the tax assessors database of landowners, and looked at registered voters. And their staff did this, in, I think, less than a week. They started on Monday. I think they were done by Thursday and Friday. So to date, there's only been one professional examination of these petitions. What they found, and we had to do an open records request to get this, is that of the 3 petitions submitted, not one of them has 60% of the registered voters and 60% of the landowners. Not one of them. This isn't me guessing. This isn't me going, oh, I think it is at 60%. And yet I've been in public meetings and heard elected officials say, well, this is what the community wants. We're just responding. They signed, 60% of them signed. No, 60% of them did not sign. And what I can tell you is that in some instances, it's not even close. 44%. 52%. Landowners in South Oaks, 8.7%. Now our numbers. The school board looked at it and said, no. Now, remind you, this started back in April, June 27th. When they annexed Guilford Forest, guess how long it took them to do it? 39 days from beginning to end. Yet we're in the months and months, and they keep telling us, we haven't been able to validate the petition yet. Why? Why is it taking so long? I think I know why it's taking so long. Because you don't have 60% of the registered voters and 60% of the landowners. And let me tell you this. This is based on a petition they turned in back in April. Every week since then, we have been knocking on doors in our community, asking people, did you realize what you signed? What I can tell you is every week people are signing notarized letters to take their name off the list. So whatever number they had in April, they got even less now. So if it wasn't near 60% in April, what I can assure you is it's even further away from 60% now. Before all is said and done, we would likely have over 100 folks who would come off of this list, and you didn't have it to start with. So the fundamental issue is, what happens? Because there are many people, Ms. Royal and Angie, who will tell you that they didn't have 60% back in 2007 when they did legal reports. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. What I know is that back then, nobody was asking the questions that we're asking now. And nobody was saying, no, you got to follow state law. You got to give us a report on municipal services. You got to validate the petitions. Nobody was paying that close of attention. So now that we're looking, the problem becomes, well, what do we do? What if they just vote on the petitions anyway? The city council is not voting on this yet, which is the next step in the process. Once they have validated and said, yes, these petitions have 60% signatures, then it has to go on an agenda of the city council, and they have to vote. And that's the final legislative step. Then it goes to the Secretary of State. And there's several other steps that are supposed to take place before that happens. Once they validate the petitions, state law says that they have to hold a public meeting. They have to advertise it for 2 weeks, hold a public meeting, where they tell the entire community, here's how we're going to do your police, your fire, your water, because all that stuff is involved too, you know that, right? They got to tell you all your municipal services, they got to tell you about your Herbie and how much that's going to cost, and all that has to take place before they can vote on it. Now, that can't take place until they validate the petition, which as of yesterday, they have not validated as of yesterday, all right? I told you that they're requesting to get people off the list, right? So our concern at this point is, this has all been community-based, right? I started to tell you, I'm a parent, just like y'all. I'm a parent at home. But we're up against a city that has a lot of money and a whole room full of attorneys. And so many of us are concerned that this will ultimately turn into a legal issue. Because if we know, based on what the school board looked at those petitions, that they aren't 60%, yet the city of Atlanta goes, yes they are. What do we do? If they vote on it anyway and push this through, and it's not 60% as many people believe was the case 7 years ago, what do we do? Well, when you're in a legal fight and you don't have an attorney, you're at a disadvantage. You're going to lose. Because they're going to beat you every time if you don't have any legal representation. All right? So what do? We have to raise some money. I'm just being honest with you. Because the most likely way that this will end is in front of a Fulton County Superior Court judge. The state law says you can go in front of a judge and ask for, and if I get this wrong, I know we have at least one attorney, a declaratory judgment, where you can petition the court to say, this annexation is not legal, and here's why. Right? And and by the way, just so you know, our community group has already reached out. We've talked to 3 law firms so far. We've talked to 4 so far that have some interest in taking this case on. And we are talking to a 5th one on Monday. And all of them feel like there is merit to this case, that citizens in this community have what in the legal sense is called standing before the court, which means you have a legal position that is valid before the court, all right? The purpose of raising money is for legal fees, right? Because if we don't have an attorney, and they try to push this through anyway, and we know it's not legal, we have to be able to go to court and deal with it. The other reason for it is so that we can more effectively get the word out to people in the community, so that they know what's going on. What we found by knocking on doors is the vast majority of people who hear the facts that you heard this morning go, that's not what I signed up for. I didn't realize what was going on. Because, in all honesty, all the facts weren't shared when the petitions were being handed out. And so people didn't have the information they needed. What we will do is we will use whatever money is raised for legal fees and to create communication documents to send out to the community. Right? Any money, once we defeat this annexation, that is remaining from the fundraising we are doing, it will go directly to the A. Phillip Randolph and Sandtown Middle School PTAs. We simply split the money and donate it to our children so so that that money goes right back into our community. Okay? So we have to raise some money. Our goal is to raise $20,000. Why do we say $20,000? All the law firms we've talked to, they work on retainers. You got to pay up front. The minimum retainer, just for them to do a filing. And that's not to argue the case. That's just for them to put together the initial filing to go before the court. That starts at $5,000. You get what you pay for. Now, there may be an attorney that'll do it for $200, but you get what you pay for, all right? So the attorneys we're talking to have either had experience with annexations, education issues, voter rights issues, filed suits against governments and municipalities. Or you need someone that's done this before, who has some education experience or annexation experience. The minimum retainer is $5,000 just to file something. But once you do a filing, then there's going to be a hearing. Then you got to have an attorney show up and do multiple hearings. Based on that, that's where the $20,000 goal comes from. It's going to be a minimum of $10,000 to $15,000 to have them file it, then go argue the case in several hearings so that we can stop this illegal annexation. We have a GoFundMe site, and we also have a Facebook page, and it's GoFundMe. That's the web address that you see on the screen. GoFundMe.com, protecting our schools. We encourage you to go to that website and donate the money. Now, whenever you start talking about money, people go, oh, wait a minute now, here y'all go. Somebody's going to be bought themselves a car. So we are going to be absolutely 100% transparent about where every penny of this money goes. We're not hiding nothing. You can ask me or anybody else that's involved, where is the money? How much did you have? What did you spend it on? And we will show you where every penny went. I'm blessed. I got a job. I don't need to take money from my community. And nobody else does. We're trying to help our kids. This GoFundMe site was initially put up by Kim Hartwell, who is the PTA president here at Phillip Randolph. We also have a Protecting Our Schools bank account at Wells Fargo at Camp Creek. My name is on it. I'm pretty easy to find. A lot of you probably know. So my name, Tony Phillips, is on the account, and Kim Hartwell, the president of the PTA, his name is on the account. So I'll share any information. If you got any questions about who's touching the money, what did you spend the money on, we will post all that on our Facebook page. We'll send it to you in an email. You can call me. This isn't about trying to raise money to do something funny. If we don't have an attorney and they push this through, then we'll be in the same position they were 7 years ago. And what happened, if I recall, after it happened 7 years ago, people really weren't clear. There were a lot of people in that community who didn't realize they were going to APS. Because I distinctly recall that there was a little bit of buyer's remorse. Some people were like, wait a minute, I didn't realize that. So there was a one-year moratorium, and we kind of worked it out because kids had to leave Westlake and go to Farrell. And let me be very clear. I'm not the one that tries to beat up on APS because those are our kids too. So for me, this is not about, and APS didn't initiate this. And I know Ms. Collins can't say this because there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I'll tell you this, these schools are closed. If they get annexed, they padlock them. How do I know that? Because they're padlocking other schools that are as we speak. So if you can't keep the money, you got money. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my personal opinion. And we'll find out. But our goal is, since you don't have the signature that you should have anyway, let's just stop this whole thing. You don't even have 60%. So we can just stop right there, and we don't have to worry about what's going on with this school because we haven't met what state law says you have to have. And now, I told you, they didn't have 60% to begin with, and we know nearly 100 folks have come off the petition since then. You're even further away from it than you were when you started.
It takes you 100% to get out once you get in.
Exactly, once you get out. How else can you help out? We want you to help get the message out. Catherine, can you raise your hand? Catherine has done an amazing job and has been on the streets with folks helping them knocking on doors literally every week. Even if you can't donate money, and I hope you can, but even if you can't, you can come meet us when we go door knocking. And talk to our neighbors and say, are you aware? All we do is knock on doors, pass out flyers, and just share information with folks. We're all adults, we'll make the decision we think is best. We're not trying to force anybody to do anything. What I can tell you though is almost 90% of the time, when people find out the facts, they change their mind. So that's not what I had. So if you can help us get the message out by canvassing, we need block captains. If you'll see Catherine right after the meeting, that's her back there. If you can knock on doors, or if you can be a block captain, which means I work my street. You don't have to work all the same time. I'll just take care of my street. I'll talk to my own neighbors. If you can do that, it helps. We need to continue to pressure the Atlanta City Council. We went to a meeting, I can't remember the date, in May 18th, and we kind of ruffled a few feathers out there. But we went to the meeting on May 18th, about 25 of us, and we need to continue to do that. Through the email list, if you've signed up to our Facebook page, we're going to designate another city council meeting for us to show up. All you have to do is come and just show up because numbers make a statement. Petition removals. If yourself or others in your community want to remove their name from this petition because they have buyer's remorse, they didn't understand what it's about, there is a consent letter that they can sign and have notarized. We will bring it to their door. If they email us or tell you, hey, I want to come off the list, you can do that this morning while you're here, but we'll also come to your community, to your neighborhood, and bring them a letter that they can sign in their driveway and have it notarized to get their names off of this petition. All we ask you to do is to please sign up and volunteer today. Now, I know we've got some questions. We want to try to answer a few of them. We're running a little long. We want to try to answer as many of them as we can. Is there an updated map to show what's still planned to be annexed? That's the first question. To the best of our knowledge, the maps they submitted on April 8th to the Fulton County government have not changed. Now, we've heard comments like, well, maybe we can take the schools out. Maybe we can redraw the maps. There's been no communication officially between Atlanta and Fulton County to change the maps. Some of you may have been with us on May 6th when we went before the Board of Commissioners when they voted on this issue. They voted on the maps that were presented. If they suddenly change the map, it's another reason we need an attorney. If they suddenly change the map, there's a valid question as to whether or not the process has to start over. Because what you presented to the county was one map. If you then turn around and say, okay, never mind, scratch that one, I want to do something else. It changes the percentages, it changes the area, and we would argue that that changes the process. So to date, there's been no official communication of an altered map. 2, what attorneys do we have for this? It's not on the GoFundMe site. We have not finally selected an attorney yet. We've talked to 4 separate law firms, and the 5th one on Monday we'll be meeting with, and then we'll make a designation. One of the reasons that we haven't selected a law firm is we wanted to make sure that we spoke with enough attorneys to make a good choice and consult with attorneys in our own community who may not be able to take the case, but can give us some legal input and say, here's some of the things you may want to do. And the last thing is, we need to raise some money. And the reason we need to raise some money is, any of those attorneys start with $5,000. We're a little bit below $1,000, I think, on the GoFundMe site as of this morning. So we need to see if we can get that up to $5,000 this week. As soon as we select a law firm, we will share that information. Our goal is to be as transparent as we can. There's not a question you cannot ask. We're not hiding anything. And as soon as we have information, our obligation is to share that with our neighbors and say, here's where we are. Everybody says the city of Atlanta. Who is the city of Atlanta? That's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
Nobody's talking to me about that. I'm talking to the school board is not talking to the city's not talking to the county. And I'm saying, where's the push? Where's the initiative behind this?
Okay, so she says nobody's talking to anybody. The city of Atlanta is not talking to Fulton County Schools or Atlanta Public Schools. And so Van's question is, who's pushing this? Who's behind this? Why is this moving forward? Okay, so
I don't have nobody's job to worry about going to Lincoln. No job. It's the same reason. And you know, like this annexation, just make the people stand up. You know, probably this house, you got a lot of folks in the same time don't do nothing. I email, I call the Fulton County House of Representatives, House of City, I call all of those people. When I called downtown last week, the city council, they don't even want to a cluster of people going out, 3 or 4 people going out of campus. That is not going to get the job done.
Yes, ma'am.
For those that don't want to do it online, there are a lot of people uncomfortable with that. You don't want to exclude them. So can we get another?
You can write a check to protecting our schools. Write a check. We have a bank account at Wells Fargo. You can do that today. And so I agree with you. We want to make more than one option. And we encourage you, if you want to make a donation, you can do that before you leave today. And yes, checks are acceptable to protecting our schools. Yes, ma'am.
When I always went down to Atlantic City County, the 3-week program, one lady was very, very nice to me. She told me, she said, you know what? If y'all don't get y'all act together, Atlanta's going to take you over. And she said, another thing, your people out there don't even know how important this is. I have no children in nobody's school. Okay, people like me, all of us included. If we become a part of Atlanta, our tax will automatically go up by 18% for everybody. And that'll make your insurance ratio in Atlanta high for automobiles, for crime in Atlanta. And then guess what? I've been here over 38 years. We brought you to a monobuses out here. You don't want monobuses out here. You end up with a bus apartment, people don't take care of their property.
We got a couple of questions we want to get to. All right. So getting the information out is really key. Ms. Collins has answered a couple of questions that came in. Are these still relevant? The answer is yes. It says, what about contact to John Whelan? Okay. John Whelan has a significant number of parcels in this community, and John Whelan signed to put all of their parcels. Remember, it's 60% of the landowners buy acreage. And so John Whelan signed, and we need to ask John Whelan as a community, why did you do that? Did you know what it's doing to our children? We're the people who buy the homes. You might want to listen to us and decide whether or not this is a good thing to do or not. Yeah, he retired. The actual gentleman, John Whelan, but it's the company as well. All right? I'm a Westlake parent. What about the city of Atlanta buying police precinct on Fulton Industrial? That's a city council question. And by the way, the lawsuit that he mentioned, where the city of Atlanta, there's an old bank building on the corner of Fulton Industrial Boulevard and Old Gordon Road. He's his son trust, I think. That's the parcel that city of Atlanta is trying to buy. It's not just about annexing one parcel at a time. There's a state law that says the city cannot annex Fulton Industrial Boulevard.
They submitted a thing to get that thrown out so they can.
That's what they're trying to do. The reason being is, when people think about Fulton Industrial Boulevard, everybody thinks about all the little seedy hotels right there around I-20.
Right.
They shake their head, well, who cares? You can have all that. What you don't know is that there are 600 corporations on Fulton Industrial Boulevard.
Most profitable.
PepsiCo, Gatorade. There are huge corporations. It's not just the seedy hotels right there. 25% of the tax base in unincorporated South Fulton comes off of Fulton Industrial Boulevard. Why do you think he wants Fulton Industrial? Because it's the biggest chunk of unclaimed money in the area. So you have to see past the initiative. It's not just, oh, I want this one parcel. No, I'm trying to set a legal precedent that says I can annex more of Fulton Industrial, because I can tell you, working for the county, there's a lot of money in Fulton Industrial Boulevard. Don't let anybody fool you. One of the largest industrial areas this side of Mississippi. Don't let anybody fool you. You know what I'm saying? Don't let the little hotels throw you off. There's plenty of business in here. Yes, ma'am.
South Fulton is already here. And one of the things that we may not know is that the city of Atlanta, so to speak, a lot of this land, South Fulton is now the only place that has agricultural land that's for development. It's close to the airport. They're trying to combine all the cities around us. They're trying to bring so many things over here from hotels. They spoke about Fulton Industrial. So it's more than just about the city. It's even more about the schools and the education. It's about the money that's available in South Fulton to the companies. We're not talking about the companies that are already here. We're talking about international companies. Most of you may not know, they're getting ready to extend in the international side of the airport. So the only way that they have to go is South Fulton. So it has a lot to do more so about the money that the city of Atlanta can also make in acquiring Fulton Industrial, because that was brought up. Bringing hotels that have swimming pools, not swimming pools, but parks. The same thing that other cities have. If you look and go to aerotropolis.com as far as for Atlanta, you'll start seeing and paying attention to the things that they're trying to do in South Fulton. So it's bigger than just us. Yeah. Okay, we're talking about the money, we're talking about international, we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about the fact that they can't go any further north. So all they have now is South Fulton and the area and the surrounding areas from Henry County, all this land that's on our side now, that's what they're coming for. All the way from Savannah on up. So just be aware of that, and just you got to research even more so than just what's going on here in our community. It's bigger than that. So make sure you're paying attention and just going to all the meetings that you can attend that involve any portion of boards, from Delta to the CEOs. Not sure as far as what all the acronyms mean, ARC, but it was a lot of people there, and there's a lot of knowledge that was put forth. And I do have a copy of the proposal, and the blueprint is due in August, so I'll pass that on, but just know it's more about the money than about us.
ARC is the Atlanta Regional Commission. You can look that up and see their website. Thank you for that. That is really good information, and I agree wholeheartedly. Everything is about politics and money. I'm a West End parent offering support to the Sandtown A. Phillip Randolph parents. My question is, if there are so many questions and undetermined outcomes for the students impacted by annexation, why not hold off on annexation until those questions are answered? No one can tell you the answer to that definitively. What I can tell you is, if students and education was important to them, we wouldn't be in this position. They'd answered those questions before we got to this point. Whenever somebody first came up with the idea that they wanted to annex this area, the first conversation they should have had was, what's going to happen to those schools and those students? But nobody thought it was important. The reason I say that is because if you thought it was important, there wouldn't be so many unanswered questions at this point when you're impacting children's education. I gotta be honest with you, as a parent, there are times when I sit back and think, how dare you? How dare you come into my community and do this, and don't think my children are important enough for you to answer this before you got here? You did this and then tell me I filed a lawsuit, I'll let you know how it comes out. It's almost as if children and education are an afterthought. We'll get to that later. They could have very easily sat down and had a dialogue with our community, our school board, APS, Fulton County, City of Atlanta, and maybe reasonable people could have come up with a solution we could all live with. But they didn't think that was necessary. And it's true, it is a larger issue. It is about money. And when you got dollar signs in your eyes, you're not thinking about kids. You're thinking about, what can I annex? How is this going to help me get elected? How is this going to get more money in the coffers? And the children are an afterthought. Oh, we'll figure that out later. Well, we're here to say, no, you won't figure it out later. You'll figure it out now. If it is determined that we will be annexed, can we forge an agreement that concurrent to annexation, we get to elect new representatives for the city and the school board? It's premature to be determined, but it's a possibility. What may or may not happen if it's annexed, there are probably a lot of things that would happen subsequent to that. There may be redistricting. There may be a need to go back to the polls. Our position is, the petitions aren't legal. We shouldn't be doing this anyway. Just leave things like they are. How much time do we have before this turns into a legal fight? The question is, we don't know, and we need to raise money today. The validation of the petitions that took 39 days back in 2007 is now stretching out. There's some concern that they're intentionally stretching this out in hopes that some of us who are concerned will kind of quietly fade away. And so we got to make sure that doesn't happen. But we need to be fundraising now and retain an attorney right now so that if they show up, there are 2 city council meetings in July. The city clerk told Catherine on yesterday that she didn't think it was possible for this issue to be prepared and put on the city council's agenda for July. Not impossible, but she seriously doubted it to happen that quickly. When Keisha Lance Bottom was at Sandtown Center 2 weeks ago, she made the same statement. I don't see this happening in the month of July. They are on recess, the City Council of Atlanta, in August. So this could stretch into late August, September, we don't know. So we don't want to wait and be a day late and $1 short, and then something happens and we're scrambling to get an attorney. We need legal representation now. Sorry, yes.
I would say, for one of the cards, they were asking who's leading this effort. There are people in our community that do seriously want to annex into the city of Atlanta. Debbie Davis came to our subdivision a couple of weeks ago. She spearheaded the entire process on a community-based effort. But with all the pamphlets and handouts that she wrote, I know she's not paying for it out of her pocket. Even though
No, the city pays for it.
everyone in the city keeps saying that this is a community-led effort, but this is truly people in our community leading this effort with plans that live in guild bars, like Keisha Lance Bottom, the mayor, who resides there, that are pushing other residents in our area to continuously go around. Because while we're sitting here, they're not getting more attention to start another annexation process in other areas. They are trying to stretch all the way to Stonewall Town Road and Butler Road. Believe me, that's the map that they have.
That was the original map that they
When I put
submitted.
the map out, they sit there looking like I was crazy saying, where did you get the map from? And it's a map file. You pull it off the line. I won't take up too much time, but people aren't talking like Debbie Davis. She spearheaded the process back in 2006. And she is spearheading the process right now today. And she is adamantly in other communities, trying to get people to sign new petitions to continue the process.
Well, listen, they have more money than we have.
They're being
They
funded by
have
the
more
city.
lawyers than we have. But we have the truth.
Exactly.
And we have the facts. You don't have 60% of the registered voters. You don't have 60% of the landowners. You cannot annex this area. Period. And that's the bottom line. So we need to be prepared to make that argument legally. I appreciate all of you coming out. I appreciate your time. We'll hang around if you have some questions we didn't get to. Catherine, did you have something before we just...
I think some people who are notary to help with our efforts, and I do need people who are willing, usually we are normally between 6 to 8:30, please meet me. We have to talk about that.
Is Kim Hartwell? Okay. You can give the checks to this one lady. This is Kim. Kim is the PTA president at Westlake. She's working with her. You can give checks if you want to donate to her. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please look for more information. God bless.